Hello, everyone. Hi, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you're joining us from. Thank you so much for joining Ochan and Jennifer and me for this leadership masterclass today. My name is Snigdha, and while we wait for a few more people to join us, I would love to take this opportunity to introduce our two speakers for today. So let's start with Jennifer. So Jennifer is passionate about restoring play in early childhood education, which she feels is a requirement that needs to be met with urgency. She is the founder of JWP Consulting Inspired by Children, which advocates for children's play. During her career, Jennifer has served many international schools in Asia, Europe, and in the Middle East. Her roles have included being a teacher, an early childhood specialist, program coordinator, and a member of primary leadership. Now, moving on to Ochan. Ochan is the Director of Education Across Frontiers, has been an international school educator and a consultant to schools from all around the world. She presents in the areas of coaching, special education, inclusion, and collaboration. She is a founding member of Design Team for the Next Frontier Inclusion, a not-for-profit organization that supports international schools in becoming increasingly inclusive at a systems level. She's taught for 25 years in international schools and has taught across all grade levels and has also co-authored several books on various subjects. All right, again, Jennifer Ochan, so happy to have you two here with us today. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. I would love to walk everyone through the housekeeping notes for this masterclass. So in this masterclass, we can't hear you. If you have any questions, please type them in the question tabs on the right of your screen. You can see the image on the screen as well. At various times, we will ask you to pause and reflect. In fact, there is a lot of interaction that we would love in this session. So our all access attendees on the platform can use the chat feature to interact. You can see that on the screen as well. For everyone watching us on YouTube, do not fret. Please drop your questions and respond to any of our prompts in chat, and our team is going to relay that back to us, and we will definitely hear you as well. And finally, this webinar has been independently developed and is not endorsed by the IB. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, a little bit about Toddle. So the Inquiry Educators Summit is a community initiative by Toddle. If you haven't heard of Toddle before, it is a teaching and learning platform that brings teachers together in areas of curriculum planning, progress reports, assessments, family communication, and a host of other things. Along with the platform, we also have resources, very actionable, timely resources that we create for teachers that you can take back into your classrooms, as well as organize community-led PD events like this one, as well as webinars and focused curriculum events as well, with the goal to help teachers learn and grow with each other. Could we go on to the next slide, please? All right, last slide from me. So finally, we would love to know what your takeaways are from this masterclass. We love to see the learnings, questions, aha moments on social media. So don't forget to use the hashtag ToddleTies. All of our social media handles are here on the screen as well. And with that, Jennifer Ochan, over to you.
Thanks very, very much, Snigdha. So before we continue, Jenny and I would like to just say a few words about ourselves that Snigdha didn't include in her introduction of us. First of all, I have a particular passion for this topic, because as a child, I moved around a lot. And so I never really felt like I belonged anywhere. As a family, we just kept moving so often. So I was forever saying goodbye to friends. And that meant that whenever I had a teacher that I didn't like or establish any rapport with, I kind of got stuck with that teacher for the whole year. So life was actually pretty hard until in the 4th grade, I met a wonderful teacher named Mrs. Joseph.
First of all, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone who has chimed in to be with us here today. And for me, I have a personal connection to this because my son is a student who is often misread and therefore misunderstood at school. And very early and very quickly, he was labeled a challenging student. And I remember throughout his primary years, I was always called in by his teachers because they perceived he did something wrong or he didn't do something that was told of him. So seeing the long-lasting impact it has caused him, I learned that I need to advocate for him. And now he knows and is confident he has a champion. And going through this process, I know that every student out there needs a champion too. That all students need to know they matter and belong, and that we need to invest in hearing their stories and building relationships with them, because without these, nothing really matters when it comes to learning. And so I wanted to leave you with the words of Dr. Rita Pearson from one of her TED Talks. And she says that every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be.
So with that, we're going to start with our inclusion activator. And this one is called Making Connections. And so could you please close your eyes, take a couple of deep cleansing breaths, and if possible, press your feet into the surface beneath.
Now, in the chat box, we would like to invite you to share your contexts with us. Please type in 3 words. 1 word that tells us which town or city you're currently in. 1 word to describe the space you're coming from with us here today. And the 3rd word that describes the material you pressed your feet into. When you're ready, please share with us your contexts.
Jennifer and Ochan, we already have a few cities that have started coming up. So we have people from Tokyo, from China, from Germany, from Kosovo, from Mumbai in India, from Istanbul, Turkey, from Magnolia as well, Somala. Lots of, it's truly a global community here. And in terms of other words that are coming up, a lot of living room sofas and couches, soft marble tiles from the home office, from kitchen table, soft carpet, from the living room, from the kitchen, at a window overlooking the jungle. Wow, that sounds amazing. On a wooden floor, a lot of wood and carpet coming up as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next thing to type into the chat box is, what do you hear right now? Please type that in.
But for me right now, I hear a little bit of construction happening outside my window. Yes, a lot of people are still sharing the first 3 words. Let's give them a few more seconds. Okay, my fan buzzing, children laughing, my air conditioner and construction. A lot of people hear their fans going on. If somebody hears a sheep, absolute silence. I hear a clock, my son watching TV, buzzing of appliances, husband's music, and my cat grooming by my feet. coughing, traffic, my dog's paws tapping on the floor. So a lot of different sounds.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And the next one, if you could play this group a song to evoke an emotion, what would it be? Please put the name of the song into the chat box for us.
I'm actually very excited to see the responses to this prompt. For the previous prompt, some people actually said Snigdha talking. Fair enough. Right. Everybody's thinking about a song. Motorcycle Emptiness, Stand By Your Man by Carla, Good For Me, Above and Beyond, Imagine, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen, Best Day of My Life, Thunder by Imagine Dragons. This is going to get a playlist ready for us.
Yes, yes, we are. Thank you. And here's another question for you to put into the chat box. Who did you need to check with today to be here with no other obligations?
Such a great question. For me, it would be my cat and my husband. I'm pretty much locked them in the other room. My family, right, Aga? we pretty much just gotten our families in one room. My husband, my family. Stana says, actually, no one, just me, my daughter, my kiddos. Yeah, a lot of people are actually saying nobody because they sent their families away on trips or they're by themselves right now. But a lot of people actually saying their families.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, into the chat box, please. If you weren't following your current path, what might you be pursuing?
Wow. If we weren't all teachers and educationists, what would we be? All right, there we go. Event management, acting, humanitarian work, yoga instructor, marketing,
So many options.
interior decoration, yes, home renovations.
Such a variety.
Absolutely. Some people, so a lot of animal sanctuary, artists, counseling, real estate, freelance. In the well-being area, I would be a nun, ballroom dancer, landscape artist.
How
so
wonderful.
many different options.
How wonderful. So what we'd like to do now is actually take you back a few slides to this one over here. And we wanted to give you the thinking that went behind the design of these slides. First of all, this slide offers you the space for becoming fully present. And you'll notice if you practice meditation that this is often the beginning part of meditative practice.
And by asking you to share with us in the chat box 3 words about your context, it gives the opportunity to make visible our present realities, and that even though we're in different parts of the world, we can appreciate the diversity with which this group brings.
And building on that diversity, having you write down a list or a playlist, as Snigdha said, of sorry, not a playlist, but what you hear emphasizes that we're really in different contexts. And let's celebrate that instead of, pretending that we're all the same.
On the playlist, asking you about a song to evoke an emotion, it helps us to understand the emotional tenor of this learning space. And so it allows us to develop empathy and compassion towards the emotions of others as we celebrate the difference in perspectives.
And this particular slide was to recognize and honor our individual present realities and the commitment that brought each of us to this conference today in order to enhance and hone our skills. And it reminds us really to appreciate the opportunity for this shared time.
And the final question of what you might be pursuing, it creates a sense of expansion and opening to possibilities. So it reminds us to remain in our growth mindsets,
which we will come back to during the course of our work together. And so here you go. Here's the processing question for you. What connections are you making to the theme of this workshop, which, as you know, is being known, loved, safe, and successful, the role of collaboration and inclusion? Please enter your thoughts into the chat box.
For me personally, I already feel like I know the group so well, and there is a sense of, common preferences, differences that we've already highlighted in just less than 10 minutes. So it's given such a great sense of who everybody is, and the prompts really help us get there. You're making connections here to being known, loved, safe, and successful. Let's give everybody a few more seconds to pen down their thoughts. So Kate here says we've been included in body, mind, and soul. Needing to remember that we're all individuals, even when we meet in a room or a classroom together. So a lot of people are talking about the connection between the mind, body, and soul. It is all one. How can a sense of belonging and acceptance make learners feel secure? A lot of people are actually saying that we have been accepted, and honoring the me and the we. Yeah, this is a great way to get to know our students, to help them, to build good relationships with them. And I think Lada, I hope I'm saying your name right, says this beautifully, that everybody needs to be loved, feel safe, and successful. We have to respect everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And our agenda for our time together. So we're currently in the welcome, and you'll notice that this master class will follow a what, why, and how structure as we begin by offering you our definitions for inclusion and collaboration with a focus on their importance in the work that we do. And finally, we'll delve into various skills and behaviors to support our practices, which then brings us to closure with time for questions.
So let's get into the definitions. What is inclusion? And this work is actually taken from the work that I'm doing right now with my colleague Kendall Zoller, who some of you may know for his work on communicative intelligence and nonverbal skills. And we're working on a book right now that we're tentatively calling A Place for Everyone, and it's in process. And what we did was we decided to turn around the question of what is inclusion. So often schools will say, they'll hang up a sign and they'll say, we are inclusive. And then sometimes when you ask the different stakeholders, to what extent do you feel included? Some people say yes, some people will say sort of. It's not really very consistent. And we thought, well, why are we asking schools if they're inclusive? Why don't we ask the stakeholders? Why don't we ask students? Why don't we ask the nurse, the teachers, the parents, the bus driver, the food service handler? To what extent do you feel known, loved, safe, and successful? So Jenny and I will deconstruct the 4 elements of inclusion for you right now. And so we're going to start with, what does it mean to be known?
The element of being known is really about to what extent do people see me as an individual? To what extent am I being recognized? So a student will feel this if they're walking down the hall and they're known by name. And if they're missing from school, it will be noticed and felt because they truly matter. And so individuals who are known have a voice, and their voice are sought for because what they say counts and are valued.
Let's take a look at what it means to be loved. And we're reminded of the words of the poet, J.D. McClatchy, who once said, love is the quality of attention that we pay to things. And so when we know that we are loved, it's because we feel accepted for who we are and whatever it is that we do and say, that people accept us for who we are. And we know that because they listen to us and they show that they care about us. They also care about our growth, our development. And it means that in this space of being loved, we can be our authentic and very best selves.
And so when people feel known and loved, we know that this makes them feel safe and trust is established. And you highlighted this in your processing of the community builder, that a sense of belonging makes learners feel secure. So I feel safe enough and the trust is there where I feel I'm able to be vulnerable and to take risks. And I'm not afraid to make mistakes because mistakes don't define who I am. And I know that I'll be forgiven and it won't be held against me because I'm not being judged. And it also means I'm not feeling bullied by peers. And this is because there isn't the fear of commonplace verbal, behavioral, or environmental slight that communicate negative attitudes towards me. And if you're a student, this also means the microaggressions, like the use of sarcasm from adults. That's because I know that people hold a sensitivity towards who I am and how they interact and treat me.
And finally, what does it mean for us to feel successful? It means that I am encouraged to pursue the interests and the passions that I have. That means that people want me to be self-directed and not just conform to whatever expectations are held up for me. It means that people are interested in my goals and helping me to achieve them. And so this allows me to have a sense of achievement about my work. And it tells me that in this environment, I'm allowed to grow and learn because I also have a say in how people are going to evaluate me. So I'm part of the evaluation process. It's not just handed down to me. all of this means that it's the principle of good fit. It's a good fit between me and the organization or the school that I'm a part of.
We also wanted to share with you our definition for collaborate. While the concept itself may seem simple, collaboration is anything but simplistic. And this is because there is the assumption that we would unnaturally know how to work effectively and efficiently in a partnership or as a member of a team. However, experience tells us that this isn't the case, that collaboration takes hard work, deliberate effort, and commitment from all. And this is because we know that collaboration is about working towards a community-wide goal. And so it involves investment in working towards interdependence. It also means that members are afforded equal status, that it's about the relative perceived importance and value of every member in the group. So it's about being deliberate in our interpersonal relationships where shared responsibility for participation and accountability, as well as problem solving and decision making, are enjoyed by everyone. And so what occurs when we collaborate are practices that include co-planning, co-instructing, co-assessing, and co-reflecting.
So with all of that input that you just had, in what ways does it connect, extend, or challenge what you've already known and experienced in your own settings? Please write that in the chat box.
Such a thought-provoking prompt. Let's give everybody a few more seconds to jot down their ideas. In what ways do these definitions connect, extend, or challenge what you have known or experienced in your own settings? All right, so Aga here says challenges, making sure everyone, not just parents, learners, and teachers, feel loved and safe and successful. Meeting and sharing ideas and making the best of it together in a team. That's what Lada says. I feel like I value this and I know this. What is the gap when it doesn't happen? What are the metrics I can use to give myself feedback? So here's Kate reflecting on her own practice. I don't know too much about microaggressions, but reflecting on it now, they can have quite an impact on a day or part of the day. The importance of every member of a school community feeling equally valued is something I feel always needs working on, not only for students, but also for different staff members, for example, teacher assistants in an international school. And like you said, right, like everybody in the learning community. That it being just said or posted on the wall doesn't mean it's happening effectively in your setting. That's such a great thought. Building mutually respectful relationships and rapport between students and teachers. Make sure your students know that you love and you care about them. It has made me think about all the people in our building and not just the students. So true.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So here we go.
So at this point, we would like to invite you to share some more of your thinking with us. Take a moment to think about this question of why. Why might collaboration and inclusion be important in each of our settings? So please take a moment to respond to this question in the chat box.
Yeah, Amanda's saying that the challenge for her has been to prioritize community time to establish trust so that we have a safe space from which we grow. All right, in terms of why are collaboration and inclusion important, Carla is thinking about how we can measure inclusion in various ways, qualitative and quantitative, and perceptions versus reality. All right, it's important because people matter. Collaboration encompasses going beyond just talking about ideas, but ensuring trust and respect from all stakeholders. That we must value, love, see, and care for our learners, even when there are language barriers or when academic language is prioritized. It's important to acknowledge and understand diversity, appreciate this, and learn from each other, understanding we don't exist in isolation. It's important because there is no one expert in the classroom besides humans as social species. Mostly so that everyone feels valued, seen, and heard. Also, so that we can learn from many perspectives. So a lot of people talking about just the importance in the classroom for the learning community, for us to learn and grow together.
Thank you.
So why inclusion? As you heard from the earlier slides, that in order to feel known, loved, safe, and successful, we also need to feel included. And this is because inclusion serves to develop a sense of belonging and membership for all. And for those who feel marginalized or those who are viewed to have less power, when we are committed to a right to the sense of welcome and belonging for all individuals, we can help to shift the discourse and accord everyone's status and give space for their voices to be heard, involved, and valued. So in this way, we can honor people beyond their role. So for our students, not only do we see them as capable and competent learners, we also come to know them as individuals, and we can appreciate them as people. We know that when our students feel a sense of relatedness and acceptance, and when they feel valued and respected, it only has a positive impact on their well-being and on learning. So we have a commitment to fostering and maintaining a caring, respectful, and supportive community that is cohesive and connected, where diversity is celebrated and value for all stakeholders.
So really, this brings us to the question of collaboration, because as Jenny finished up, you would probably have got a sense from what she said that people shouldn't have to earn the right to be included. And so it brings us to the whole question of collaboration. One of the things that we know is that the work is not easy. Developing inclusive cultures is not easy, and it is made easier by working together, which is what makes collaboration so critical. And yet, as Jenny said earlier, it's anything but simple, particularly in our international context. You know, we come in and we speak a lot of different languages, and we use the English word collaboration And suddenly we all think that we mean the same thing and we don't. So it's really important to develop common understanding of what is collaboration. One of the things, I mean, we know several things about collaboration. Usually thinking is enriched when you have more than one head thinking about an issue. And as one of you said earlier in the chat box, you know, no one person, no single person is equally strong in everything that they do. And so having a collaborative partnership allows us to draw on each other's strengths. And in doing so, we develop the all important, the critical common language and understanding of the students who sit in front of us. Sometimes we talk about students and two people could be talking about the same student, but they see different things. And being in a partnership and collaborating with each other really helps us to see a much fuller picture of every single child. And because it is a social act, collaborating is a social act, it becomes so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, so at this point, we wanted to invite you to draw on some personal connections to the theme of this masterclass. So please be ready to take some notes, and then please be ready to share. We invite you to think of a person from your life who has significantly influenced you in becoming the successful person you are today. So think of a person. And as you recall this person, think of some of the specific things they did to show you how they thought about you. And finally, in what ways did this person help you understand that you are known, loved, safe, and successful? So how did this person make a difference in your life? So just take a few moments to jot some notes to yourself. And when you're ready, we invite you to share in the chat box. How did this person make a difference in your life?
Well, I did this prompt as well right now, and I have my notes here. And I think how did that person make a difference in your life? I think by the way they responded to any mistakes I made, by listening and actually listening to me instead of ever making me feel like I'm being judged or evaluated, or but and just the importance of listening and talking to me and understanding where I was coming from, I think played a huge role. All right, so some people have started entering in chat as well. So she gave me a voice, time, and challenged me to think differently. My mother, also an educator, always put me first, which ultimately made me who I am today, but also taught me how to parent. Aga, that's beautiful. She believed in me, pushed me out of my comfort zone, and gave me opportunities. They talked to me. They did not just keep asking me a bunch of questions. Empowered me to take action fueled in belief in my abilities. My grandmother, she was present in heart, soul, and body. She simply cared. She gave me space to try new initiatives and celebrated the wins and the losses as well. We learned together. My father, he inspired me to be successful. He believed more in my brother, so I tried my best to be successful, and this made me be careful when I have my own children. Valued my input and perspectives, even when they were very different from his own.
Thank you. So really, when you think about the notes that you wrote to yourself and about the person who really supported you in becoming the successful person you are today, the question is, for whom will you be that person? So we want to pay it forward. So we'll get into some of the practices. How might we do that? And we've compiled for you a list of many, many different practices, beliefs that can move towards supporting people in being inclusive and in a collaborative way. We'll go through our list, and then we'll highlight just a few of them for you. So here you go. The 7 norms of collaboration. Many of you may already be very familiar with the work of Garmston and Wellman, and they wrote seven norms of collaboration. And as Jenny indicated earlier, it doesn't work when it just sits up on the wall. It really needs to live in your heart. The second has to do with truly listening with heart and mind. What we've noticed in schools is that schools are very good, or they say they teach the 4 communication skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And generally speaking, they are very good at the first, at reading, writing, and speaking. Very few schools that we encounter actually teach listening, other than to say, please listen. So listening with heart and mind is another piece. The third idea is to deliberately foster interdependence. And we put this versus very unhealthy competition. The idea of working together, collaborating, and teaching young people the skills that they will need to work together with others as they grow older is a critical piece. Also, the way that we ask our questions. How might we ask questions so that they don't just feel like an interrogation, but they feel or they communicate that we truly believe that the other person has the capacity to answer our challenging questions. And also the idea of according status, because we know that children who enjoy high status learn more because they have more teacher time and they have greater access to materials. So status is an important one, not only for young people, but also in our collaborative practices. When we work with others, we want to be sure that whoever is the adult, the other adult in the room that we're working with, that they feel a sense, or we foster a sense of co-equal status. It is better for us as adults, and it is certainly better for children. Here's the second part of our list. And this goes to Carol Dweck's work on growth mindsets. See others as they could be, not as they are. So think beyond where these individuals are today. This also requires that we become generous in how we interpret what people say and what they do, which also calls upon us to use a strength-based or asset-based approach. When we grind on the difficulties that people have, when we grind on their challenges, they are hardly likely to lift themselves up beyond that to improve in the skills that we want them to improve in. And that does open up the idea, which is part of the theme of this conference, of limitless learning. Anything is possible. And we see the emergence of possibilities.
So one of the practices that we wanted to draw your attention to are the 7 norms of collaboration. And as Ochan mentioned earlier, is the work from Garbston and Wellman. And as we're coming together with the diversity of identities, experiences, and opinions, these norms are necessary and essential for building social capital and developing a culture of collaboration. And as Ochan had mentioned, while these norms are behaviors that are about promoting positive habits in collaborative work, they don't necessarily live in our hearts. So it comes back to being deliberate and having the commitment to creating and building a culture of equitable interdependence. And when we are deliberate about practicing the norms, they will serve to develop opportunities for groups to undertake their work in a psychologically safe environment and a cognitively challenging atmosphere.
And they require practice. So you heard earlier about listening with heart and mind, and we would say to you, we would offer you that listening is a full body experience. And it seems like the Chinese discovered this quite a long time ago, and I only discovered this in the research that I was doing. So when we talk about listening, it requires our ears, obviously, to hear, and our eyes to see, because we're always assessing, is what they're saying in alignment with some of the facial expressions that are going across the face? Are they matching or mismatching? We need to provide our undivided attention in order to focus. And of course, our minds in order to think, how does this fit with what so-and-so said before? How does it fit with what I know? How is what I'm hearing making sense to me? So we're undertaking a metacognitive script in our heads, even as we're listening to what someone else is saying. And finally, it requires our hearts in order to feel. So that for that moment in time, when we are speaking to another person, they feel like they are the most important person in the world to us. And we provide the conditions under which that might be possible. We do that with our entire body and the way that we engage with them.
We also wanted to focus on the skill of asking questions, because when they're carefully crafted, questions can serve as invitations for engagement and connection. And so this really requires us to pay attention to our approachability and the language we choose to use and how we use it when we pose a question, because we want to be inviting by sending the message that we care, that we're genuinely interested in what the person has to say, and that we value their contributions. And so through the use of plural forms and tentative language, we invite an exploration of options and possibilities. So we remain in a growth mindset because there is no one single fixed answer. We also want to use language that assumes positive presuppositions, because when we do this, we send the message that we believe in the other person's capabilities and capacities, And this can be empowering for the person receiving the question. And finally, when we use open-ended questions, it's inclusive because we're allowing for many possible ways to answer a question. We're allowing for many possible ways to, we're opening up many possible different pathways as it depends on the receiver, and we're including many different perspectives. So when we put it all together, you'll notice the difference between a question like, did anyone notice anything about these observations, versus what might be some interesting things you're noticing about these observations. So when we pay attention to the language we use when asking questions, we send the message that we're interested in collaborative work because we're inviting engagement, and it's inclusive because the questions make space for everyone's contributions to be included.
And the last one that we wanted to share with you is to see others as they could be, not as they are. And this goes back to the work of Carol Dweck, who you know is the author of the growth mindset theory. What we do know is that teacher expectations make a difference. You will recall the research of Rosenthal and Jacobson, the two Harvard researchers who went out to California, and they told a group of teachers, you're so fortunate, you're about to get academic bloomers in your classes. And of course, in reality, the students had been chosen at random. There was they hadn't been tested. You know, there was no such thing as anything in their records that suggested they were academic bloomers. But because the teachers expected that they would be gifted and talented, by the end of the year, the students were behaving and achieving like gifted and talented children. So what we know from that study is, and it's called the Pygmalion study, what we know from that study is that sometimes when we see children as they are, we set limits on what they could possibly achieve, particularly if they are children who have learning disabilities or have any sort of special needs. If we see them only as they are, we constrain their growth into independent thinkers. So this requires us to have and hold positive presuppositions about their capabilities. And this is not to say that, you know, not everybody's going to turn into an Olympic swimmer or an Olympic ice skater. That's not it at all. But what we want to make sure that we don't do, is to say, you know, you poor thing, please lower your sights, lower your expectations for yourself. In fact, some of you in the chat box said that the people who really supported you in becoming successful as you are today were people who set realistic and tough challenges for you. They expected a lot from you. They kept you working and kept you growing. And so this requires us to maintain our positive presuppositions and have and develop a generosity of interpretation in terms of how we see them in their behavior and in what they say. And this empowers not only them, it empowers us as well as their teachers. It gives us confidence that, yes, we know that we can do much better. We can teach more. We can work harder to get these kids to where we need them to be. So that's the ones that we wanted to highlight to you. And Snigdha, over to you.
Absolutely. So we are going to move into a quick question and answer section. But before we do that, we are sharing the link to this session's Padlet. A big part of the TICE 2022 experience is to support you in transferring learning to your classrooms in your context. And this Padlet contains resources that Jennifer and Ochan have put together for you, as well as some next steps that you could try in your context right away. So please make sure that you are looking at this. Also, feel free to make this Padlet your own, right? So if there are questions that we aren't able to take today because of time, or if there are strategies that you've tried, we'd love to see those in the Padlet. We'd love to know what's working, what the challenges are, what have you tried to do. So please make sure that you do look at this session's Padlet, and the links should be in your chats right about now. If you could go to the next slide, please, Ochan. Perfect. Let's take a few questions. I'm going to give everybody a few seconds to think of more questions, but we do have 2 that have already come in. So we can probably start with those. So Kate here asked a question that I think a lot of us as educators have been thinking about. So she says, yes, yes, yes to collaboration and inclusion. I think that being inclusive, leveling, safe, etc., takes a lot of self-reflection. I believe this is what you are modeling for us today as well. But how do I action this on a daily basis, like minute by minute in the classroom? So would you have any strategies or any ideas for her?
Yes, actually, I'd like to go back to the idea of the growth mindset, to see people as they are. This requires a deliberate intention on our parts. So as you go into class each day, think to yourself, which child have I not made personal contact with over the last 72 hours or 24 hours? I'm not sure how many students you have in your class. And how might I make personal contact with them? Ask yourself the question, which students have I maybe thought in my head, oh, they're not very smart, and go in thinking, I'm going to change my mind about this child, and I'm going to find ways to support this child in excelling. Now, we have these strategies at hand as teachers. What it does require is deliberate intentionality to put into our minds that we're going to do this as we go into the classroom, before we get into the classroom. Jenny.
Yes, Ochan, I absolutely agree with you, is that it involves a level of commitment and deliberation. And when we take that time to pause and to think that in the end, who is it serving? We know that it is in the student's best interest. So it really is about being intentional and putting that investment forward.
I would also really practice listening through using the paraphrase. Most of us say, oh, of course we paraphrase. And most of us do at quite a pedestrian level, but try to make the paraphrase succinct, so that it only captures exactly the essence, and just check, is that what you were thinking? Was that what you intended to communicate to me? Did I get that right? That's another way of showing care.
Thank you for answering that. We do have one more question that's come in. So this participant has asked, how do we know when our effect on the people around us is not the intended effect? For example, someone who is knowledgeable can sometimes come across as being intimidating. And what do we do when we realize it?
So I missed the first part of the question, Snigdha. What was the
first?
Yes,
so how would we know the effect that we have on people? Like, how do we judge that, that we are coming across, sometimes unintentionally, we might come across as something that we don't intend to.
Our effects on others.
Yes.
Thank you for the question. I would become a very good observer of people, because most of what we communicate, I believe, is between 75 and 80% nonverbal. And so it's not the words that we use. The effect that we have on people is primarily communicated through their nonverbals. And so I would become a very good observer of others' responses. And you can become very sensitive to even very small inflections of tone of voice, of eye accessing cues, of little gestures, because there's communication going on all the time.
If I could just quickly add on to that, is that I think another point for us to pay attention to is our filters. And this is because how we view the world and how we perceive information is influenced by the multitude of lenses that impact how we make meaning. And so these are the filters on our perception, and we use them to see and understand the world. And important in that is really to make the most generous interpretation of another individual.
In fact, that may be one of the most important questions that we can ask ourselves every morning, because filters are like lenses, like spectacles, like glasses or contact lenses. We can ask ourselves, what filters am I going to use to make meaning of the world today? With what filters will I see this one child who's been causing me a little bit of concern over the last few days? It's a very critical question.
Thank you so much for answering these. I think that is all the time that we have today. I would like to quickly tell you what's happening next. So coming up next, we have 5 strategy sessions, which thank you for our all access pass holders. Should you be keen, please go ahead and join these sessions. But before that, we do have a 15-minute reflection huddle. Again, for all access pass holders, and we will do that in the rooms bit. Ochan and Jennifer, we would love to have you there as well if you have the time. So my team will help you get there if you have any questions. But for everybody who is interested, these are the sessions that are coming up. Ochan, if you could go to the next slide, please. All right, we're going to quickly show you how to get to the next session. So Ochan, here you'll have to please keep clicking a few times. There is a lot of animation built into these slides. Great. So you quickly click on the agenda on the event platform. Click again. Filter for today's date. Click again. You can filter for the session type. So coming up next, we have strategy sessions. You could filter for that. And once you found those sessions, you could scroll and look at the session that you're interested in. Ochan, if you could click again one more time. And one more time, please. And simply click on join session to get there. Thank you so much, Ochan. This has been great teamwork. All right. For all our participants on YouTube who are watching the live stream, stay tuned. We will be live streaming our next keynote and masterclass shortly. So we will see you soon as well. But before we head over to the reflection huddle, Ochan and Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today. This was such a wonderful session. So many takeaways, so many things to think about. We've loved having you here today.
Thank you.
The chat is abuzz with, a lot of takeaways and thank yous as well.
Thank you.
So may I stop sharing my screen, Snigdha?
Yes, please. Yes, that's great.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.